Well, Pete, it is an honor to speak with you. Really a privilege and a pleasure. I've watched your TED Talk, and I'm a huge fan. Margarita sent me all the links to your website, and just seeing, the passion that you bring to the world of conservation, the actual work that you do, the TV series, the attention that you're bringing to these really urgent issues. I'm glad there are people out there in the world like you doing that work.
Yeah, and you, bro. Like, you said in your email about, you guys do things, work on things a little bit differently, but, the world is a better place with all of us doing our bit and, changing the way, changing people's diet, changing the amount of meat they eat, the dairy they eat, where their cars come from. All of these things play a role. So, and I have respect for anyone who makes an effort to make the world a better place.
Yeah, what was so powerful when you kicked off your TED Talk was you shared this idea that you need to find something that you would die for, something you care enough about that you're willing to sacrifice so much to accomplish your mission. I was really brought to tears by your TED Talk, and I just find it so moving that you've established a connection with yourself, that yourself, you care enough about these animals, you care enough about the planet and the ecosystem, that you're willing to make the biggest sacrifice to save the planet and to preserve the ecosystem services that we know we need to survive on the planet and to support all these different forms of life that you're currently endeavoring to protect.
Yeah, one of these with my TED talk, it just happened, the stars all lined up for me to give a really good talk. I'd just been in Brazil working on the illegal pet trade, and a lot of animals out of the Amazon that get smuggled out, and they all tend to go through Macapá, which is this dodgy port town on the edge of the Amazon. And I got stabbed by two guys, and 3 days later I was giving the TED talk, and in some ways it sort of helped me give a really powerful talk, and that I was still messed up from having been nearly lost my life with these two guys trying to knife me. And I'm really proud of the talk now. I nearly didn't do it. I got back and I was pretty upset about things, and then I started practicing the speech, and I kind of got cried out, and I was really worried that the speech would come across as being a little bit naff, and I nearly didn't do it. But looking back now, I'm glad I did. And I don't think I'm capable of giving a better talk, just straight out of being knifed. And I've been lucky over the years. I've dodged death a couple of times, and I've been lucky to work in some amazing teams. And my guys, we've rescued dolphin out of captivity, we've closed down wildlife smuggling rings, we've exposed seal clubbing inside a diamond mine. I've done a lot of really cool stuff with my team over the years, and I'm very blessed to do that. And in my talk, I basically tried to sort of say, people, there's something missing in a lot of people's lives today. It's like we're born to be consumers, and we spend our life consuming stuff through the world, and then we kind of die. And a lot of people are looking for something more than that. And certainly that was the case with me. I didn't want to just raise a couple of great kids and own a couple of houses and some cars and die. And for me, my cause became conservation and saving wildlife. And my life is much richer for it. And when I look at the people around me who lead extraordinary lives, there's something common. And it's that they do have a cause they stand for. And I don't sort of promote people dying for their cause, but I do promote the fact that people do find something they really care about and passionate about and dedicate a chunk of their life to it. Their life is richer for it. And that's what I tried to sort of tried to say in my TED talk. And looking at it now, I'm super proud of it. Like I said before, I couldn't do that talk again now.
Yeah, it's powerful. I think we're both working on the same issue of saving the planet and coming at it from very different angles. But both are incredibly necessary if we want to see the changes in the world that I think we both envision for a healthy and happier, more just world. I would love to just give you a quick intro, just in in post we can edit it together. So and just so you know, we're working on leading up to Earth Month and Earth Day, creating something called the Save the Planet series, where we interview change makers like yourself, pioneers and leaders in the world of environmental conservation, to hear their story, to hear their perspective about what they're doing, of course, and then what they see needs to happen. What are the changes we need to go about doing on a personal level, on a systemic level? You know, you're kind of coming at it from the NGO side, but what do we need to do as people to really to save the planet? And so I've got a little bit of your bio here, but I'm sure you'll be able to like add a lot to it. And it's pronounced Pete Bethune, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, great. So Pete Bethune is a author, a speaker, the executive producer of The Operatives, conservationalist, a general badass, and on the ground protecting animals every day with tactical missions that are, and maybe you can provide a greater sense of detail here, but you're supporting governments that don't have the full resources to protect their wildlife. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we provide a service to government agencies that are involved in protecting national parks, and mostly we provide expertise that they may not have. So, for example, we're helping today. I'm at the Menai Ranger Station in Costa Rica, servicing all the Menai Ranger firearms, and you know they had a whole lot of these guns donated from America, and they haven't been serviced in 2 years. And you know, often you get rangers are busy in the jungle, and their guns don't get serviced. So, but we have a $4 million military drone that we fly for surveillance. We've got a ship. We've got a canine tracking dog, an anti-poaching dog that we use for tracking people in the jungle. So we try and provide assets and services that national park authorities may not have access to, or that they can't afford, or struggle justifying in their budget.
And you work with ex-military from all around the world?
Yeah, so when we're running the television show, I recruited each season. I recruited 6 former Spec Ops guys, or sometimes standard military, just depending on what I could get at the time. So I've sort of had Navy SEALs and Delta Force, Marine Recon, some SAS guys, a couple of paratroopers, and so I would recruit these guys, and we would go on a campaign for maybe between 3 and 4 months, something like that, and provide a sustained campaign to an area and really try and get the local units trained up and go out and help them, you know, catch, be it illegal fishermen or illegal gold miners or wildlife smugglers and that kind of thing. And these days, I normally only have maybe only 1 or 2 military guys with me, but we're sort of more focused now on we let the local unit take the firearms and officiate the arrest process and that sort of thing. So we're more focused these days on the surveillance, the canine unit providing the assets. One of the things when you start running around the jungle with guns, mate, you run the risk of shooting someone, and I try and avoid that sort of thing now. You know, I every now and then I get angry white people from different countries approach me wanting to come in and shoot poachers, and it's not what we're about. You know, here's one thing, mate. You start catching these guys who do wildlife poaching or illegal gold mining. They're poor people trying to make a living. And I have no ambition to go shooting them. Like, I don't agree with what they do, and our job is to assist local authorities in catching them and having them prosecuted. But I still have sympathy for them. They're poor people trying to get by, and so part of our job is to remain really professional, and we're simply providing the service to catch these people. But at the end of the day, they are poor people making a living, and you know, part of the focus is to stop them from doing the wildlife smuggling and hopefully nudge them into more law-abiding practices.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think that sort of touches on the complexity of the issue. And I know that in the past you'd also worked with Sea Shepherd, and I have some friends who are still involved with Sea Shepherd. But often you come against that wall that you're there to do a really important job of protecting the marine wildlife, and in doing so you come into conflict with people who are just trying to make a living. And again, as you said, they're often in many cases just they're in a situation that necessitates or puts their back against the wall. What do you think needs to happen in order for those people to see that actually preservation and conservation is going to lead to a richer lifestyle, or get them involved in some sort of other work that is going to, again, achieve your ends as well as give them a good living?
Jonah, that is a very good question, mate. And there's sort of no one answer to that, but a few of the solutions. One is you need good government policy. So, and in Central America, Costa Rica, where we're working at the moment, they certainly have the most progressive policy in terms of protecting wildlife. So the governments need to enact good policy. Then there needs to be some enforcement. So, for example, here people have a history of shooting and hunting tapir, peccary, agouti, lots of wildlife traditionally has been hunted. It's a long game, and you need to gradually wean those people off hunting the wildlife. Similarly for the gold mining. So there's a lot of illegal gold mining. So we're right on the edge of Corcovado here, Corcovado National Park, one of the world's greatest national parks. 3% of the world's biodiversity is within this one national park. And historically, people have mined a lot of gold out of that national park. It's a long game to remove them all. Most of the miners we catch here are older, 50s, 60s. There was one guy got caught a few months back, 72 years old. The young people aren't mining for gold. They're off getting jobs in San Jose. They're involved in tourism and those things. So I'll go back to my first point. Firstly, you need good legislation from government. Secondly, you need enforcement. Thirdly, you need community buy-in. And in some ways, that's happening here with tourism. So Corcovado makes a lot of money from tourists coming in and seeing the wildlife. And so now there's all these jobs for in the national park ranger stations. They take tourists in. So any one night, there might be up to 75, 80 people staying there, all paying $150 to stay in this place for one night. And people don't come to, for example, Puerto Jimenez, where I am at the moment. The tourists that come here are for the wildlife. They're not coming here to go to Starbucks and sit in supermarkets and stuff like that. They're coming here to see the wildlife. So you're starting to see people valuing their wildlife and seeing it not as a resource to be eaten, but as a resource that provides them with jobs. And it is a long game. So those gold miners are still out there. The poachers, we've just got this beautiful little dog. Well, he's not that little actually, but he's a tracking dog. And his main job is to allow us to catch poachers in the jungle. Poachers are hard to catch. The gold miners, they mine in a single area. They might be in there for 2 or 3 months. We can fly the drone, find out roughly where they're mining by the turbidity in the water. So when they're mining, the water goes murky downstream from where they mine. So we can pretty much figure out where they are and then plan an operation and go in and bust them. But the poachers are only in for 1 day, 2 days maybe. Hard to catch. And the dog allows us to chase those people down now. I think in this place here, Corcovado will be saved, partly because it's got a very proactive government and we've got good tourism here. But sadly, there's so many national parks around the world where that's not the case, and where maybe they don't have the tourism, or there's been corruption, lack of backbone from the government. That's a good point I'd raise. Backbone by government. The reason Corcovado was so advanced in terms of their protection of wildlife is because they've had successive ministers of the environment that have been prepared to really stand their ground and really argue their cause about saving national parks. You go north of here to Nicaragua, their national parks are disgraced. There's nothing left. Like, all the wildlife is pretty much gone, and they kind of dabble a little bit in it. We need government ministers with backbone, and too many places don't have that at the moment. But one of the things in conservation, Jonah, you need to celebrate your victories. I've learned that over the years, and I've had a couple, and I've had my fair share of losses. So something like Corcovado, which I believe will be saved, every time we go, catching an illegal gold miner or catching a poacher or something, I make sure my team celebrate it, and the fact that, that is what it's going to take to save these places.
Yeah, totally. And I love what you said, that there's actually, in a sense, there's more money to be made if you protect this ecosystem, because you'll have tourists, you'll have a rich, thriving biodiversity, and that's going to attract long-term revenues, as opposed to poaching and hunting in the short term, where you may be able to make a quick profit, but you're actually killing the very thing that is going to bring you or potentially make you more wealthy in the long term. I wanted to share also. I had the privilege of going to Rwanda around 7 years ago, and we went into the mountains and visited the silverback gorilla. And the same people who were our tour guides were ex-poachers. So they had been caught, incarcerated, and then rehabilitated through this program that they now guide tourists like me and my family in through the mountains to watch these amazing creatures and to connect to them in a way that's powerful. And ultimately, like that connection and that approach to thinking of, if we can take more people out there to show them these wonderful endangered creatures and impress upon them the need to protect them and to grow their numbers, not only is that a powerful mission to achieve, but then these people have a sustainable and safe income as opposed to hunting these gorilla, selling their body parts, and then eventually that money runs out. So, and it touches on something, it's a theme, I think, of humanity, that we often pursue short-term profits at the expense of the long-term well-being of our environment. How do we enable governments? How do we enable more people to see that the benefit is going to outweigh the pros of conservation far outweigh the pros of short-term poaching and harvesting of these creatures?
Here's one of the things to consider in that. Many years ago, I was involved in trying to stop whaling in Antarctica, and we went down there with Sea Shepherd. I had my boat run over. I ended up going back to Japan and did 5 months in prison. But through that period, you had Sea Shepherd, Greenpeace, and a couple other NGOs were very proactive in terms of social media and conventional media and lobbying governments to take action. And in the end, it forced Australia and New Zealand's hand into taking Japan to the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Japan lost the case, and it took maybe another 4 or 5 years before they finally stopped whaling in Antarctica. What made that happen was public opinion. You had sufficient people. You had firstly Sea Shepherd team and myself down in Antarctica raising awareness, and me going back to Japan, and then there was protests, especially in Australia. They had massive protests in Sydney and Melbourne and in Canberra, and it pushed Australia's hand into taking court action. So public opinion does matter, and a lot of people think, oh, these petitions don't really matter, but sometimes you get a cause that reaches a tipping point and it pushes the government into doing something about it. And I think a lot of people, they get tired of all these petitions and stuff coming across their desk, but there's many ways you can influence government. You can call up your congressman or your senator and have a bitch about something, and those things, they do start to matter. In the end, we need to have people that care about stuff. Look, when I was at school, this was a long time ago, bro. No one knew anything about the environment. There wasn't not a single environmental course. I went to university and studied maths and engineering. Environmental science didn't even exist. Today, it's much easier to take action on environmental stuff, and there's an increasing knowledge base about climate change, about habitat loss, about things we need to do to go sorting out our planet. And so the knowledge base is increasingly there. It's a matter of us spreading that and raising awareness about this is what we need to do to save the planet. And part of it is wildlife, part of it is our consumption, part of it is our food. All of these things matter. And I think people like you and I and many others, our role in part is to tell those stories and make people aware about these are the things that you can do to save the planet, and encourage people to get involved, encourage people to lobby their senators and those things.
Yeah. One of the, I think the most powerful things you said during the TED Talk, and you just echoed it here, was let's act like the future of the planet depends on it. That's a really powerful sentiment and an amazing statement that I think I try to take to heart. We say the same thing, actually. We say, eat like the planet depends on it. And as you probably know, like, the leading cause of deforestation in the world is animal agriculture, is bulldozing forests in order to grow crops that feed livestock.
Here's something to think about. The average, I get a lot of people message me or email me or whatever, and they sort of say, you know, what can I do? A lot of people feel kind of powerless, and they think that the problem is the gold miners in Costa Rica or the people poaching rhino in Africa. But in reality, we are all part of this problem. And when I get asked, what is the number one thing you can do to save the planet? Think about what you eat. Like every time you eat a kilo of meat, the planet pays a heavy price for that stuff. The planet pays a heavy price for us eating dairy. And, you know, I've got my crew here. You go recruiting a South African. In South Africa, chicken is a vegetable. Try and get those guys to stop eating meat, mate. It's not easy. But I go back to my point before, it's a long game. And you need to encourage your people to eat less meat and eat less dairy. And with my crew here, I keep trying to drum it in, stop eating all this meat, guys. We're conservationists. And that message is starting to get through. And, companies like yours that are quite successful now on selling plant-based diets. And it is the way of the future. And it's one of the ways that your average person in the street can make sure they reduce their environmental footprint. What you eat, what you consume. Here's a really good example. So we're in Costa Rica trying to stop illegal gold mining, and there's tons of it here. And the reason they are mining gold, it's not because Costa Ricans are consuming the gold. It's Americans and British and Kiwis and Australians and Chinese. We are all consuming gold in our cell phones, in our television screens, in our cars. Gold is in all of these electronic things that we go using. Now, we are part of that problem, and the solution to that is reduce the amount of consumption we have. Like so many people, they're on this crazy consumption treadmill of going through their television screens, buying bigger houses, buying bigger cars, updating this, updating that. And we are a real key part of this problem. It's not Costa Ricans consuming gold. It's all the rest of us in Western society that consume so much stuff. So when I get asked, what can you do to save the planet? Number one, eat less meat and eat less dairy. Number two, consume less shit. And number three is have fewer kids. There's no doubt the planet is overpopulated already. We're heading for 8 billion people. We're probably going to hit 10 or 11. Have fewer kids. And that's not an easy message to say. Like, every time I say this, I guarantee when this goes out, there'll be a few people start bitching and moaning about Captain Pete Bethune telling me I can't have 5 babies if I want them. But the reality is the planet is overpopulated already, and we need to have fewer people. And if you want to contribute to the planet, think about what you eat, consume less shit, have fewer kids. Easy money.
Amazing. That's some great wisdom, and thank you for sharing that. I wanted to also just ask, because Earthrace is an amazing concept, and I was wondering if you could just, in a burning match pitch, give me a bit of the history of how that project went from the biofuel ship to what you're doing now, and what's the future look like for you?
So I was doing a degree in Sydney, and to finish the degree, I wrote a 20,000 word project, Alternative Fuels for Road Transport. And through that, I became a convert to biodiesel. And in those days, no one had even heard of it, hardly. It wasn't in big production anywhere. So I decided to do something to promote biodiesel. And I went out and I built this very cool boat called Earthrace. It was a wave-piercing trimaran. We ran it on biodiesel made from waste cooking oils out of restaurants like yours. We would get all the waste oil, make this biofuel, and run it in the boat. And we set a record for a powerboat to circle the globe doing that. Through that campaign, what happened, the biodiesel industry gradually converted largely to palm oil as a feedstock. And palm oil is mostly grown in ex-jungle land, and a big chunk in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Brazil. All of these countries are busy chopping down rainforests and planting palm oil. And so I started to have misgivings about the industry. And while that was happening, I was on this amazing boat, traveling around the world and doing open days and stuff, and I started to become really passionate about marine conservation issues. And then 2010, had the opportunity to take the boat to Antarctica, gave up basically a year of my life trying to stop whaling in Antarctica. And then at the end of that campaign, I started to see the potential of television. Like the campaign in Antarctica was covered by season 3 of Whale Wars. And the final episode, where I ended up boarding the security ship in the middle of the night off a jet ski, it became the highest ever rating episode in Animal Planet history. And it kind of opened my eyes to, maybe there's a way I could be involved in conservation with a television show. And this is a challenge. Conservation is all based. How do you fund your work? For me, it's an ongoing issue. How do I fund my work. And so I had 2 seasons of a television show called The Operatives that pulled in about $5 million, and it gave me lots of money to go hiring spec ops guys and hiring helicopters and chasing poachers and all sorts of things in different jungles and offshore and that. And that kept me going for quite a few years. And then just in recent times, the show kind of ran its course. And there was recently a more challenging thing. How do I fund my work going in the future? And I managed to get a guy who lives in Australia who funded the boat that I have at the moment. It's a former US Navy ship, 45 meters long. And I had a company in Austria called Schiebel. They sponsored us a $4 million UAV that we use for surveillance. So I kind of put those two together and just came down to did some work in Mexico supporting their National Park Authority. And now we've signed a 1-year agreement with the Costa Rican National Park Authority to support them with surveillance in the ships and canine patrols and things like that. So we're here for another year, and then after that, not really sure. We've got an offer of supporting Colombia. We're also talking to Ecuador to go and assist in Galapagos in terms of illegal fishing boats that are fishing around there. So, you know, my hope is that I remain involved in conservation and I don't get bankrupt along the way. You know, I feel very blessed to do this work. I'll tell you, mate, I look at people working 9 to 5 selling washing machines or doing that, and I could never go back and do that sort of thing. Like, I'm truly blessed to really pursue things that I believe in. And I honestly believe the world is a better place with me having been in it, despite my footprint. You know, and I go back to my point earlier, we all have a footprint on this planet based on the food we eat, based on the things we consume, based on the children we produce. These things, the planet pays a price for all of those. And I reckon I've paid the planet back with my work. And there's not a lot of people can genuinely say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pivotal moment for humanity. And I think just now, particularly in the United States with these extreme weather events, we're seeing just how interconnected ecology is in terms of a global ecosystem, where if we have a positive feedback loop where rising sea levels or melting ice caps are causing a change in one part of the world, it actually has real life implications in terms of the weather events, the extremity of those weather events that we experience. And you shared, you know, something else that was a really startling and a bit frightening statistic about biomass on the planet, that only 3% currently of the biomass on Earth is wildlife. Is that correct, or am I?
I tell you, I was amazed when I started to understand those figures. I actually had one of my former crew members. She sent me some data, basically saying that the biomass on Earth, if you take all of the land biomass, so she never included the things on sea, and she never included insects. But basically, she was saying that the man and his domesticated animals, so this is like cows, sheep, camels, donkeys, whatever, she was arguing that accounted for 95% of the world's biomass on land, and that only 5% was wild animals. And I thought it would be like 50-50, something like that. So at the time, I had a whole lot of volunteers helping me, and I sent them all out to start researching chickens and turkeys and ducks and all of the domesticated animals we have. And then I had another group of people that pursued what is the biomass of wild animals. And in the end, the numbers we came up with was 3% is the wild animals. 97% of the world's biomass on land is domesticated animals and man himself. There was a couple of really interesting things. Have a guess. What is the animal with the wild animal with the most amount of biomass on Earth? What animal do you reckon?
Say it one more time.
Animal.
Ask the question. What's the animal with the most biomass on the planet?
Yeah, what is the single animal that has the most amount of biomass on Earth? So, you know, wild animals.
I would say cows, probably.
No, cows are domesticated animals. So in terms
of
wild
sorry.
Animals, it's rats.
Rats.
And no surprise, really, because rats are all through all of our cities. The second one was really surprising too. Elephants. Elephants have the second most amount of biomass of all wild animals on Earth. And then I can't remember what third was, but after that it sort of got less significant. But going back, so if you go back 2,000 years, basically to when, say when 1 AD or something, the numbers were basically inverted. So in those days, man accounted for roughly 5% of the world's biomass. And now it's almost inverted, where, man is basically 96, 97% of the biomass, and our wild animals have been squished down to this little 3%, 4%, something like that. And those numbers, if you sit back and you really think about those numbers, it puts in perspective. Before, when I said one of the biggest problems we have is too many people on Earth, no, the planet can support another 2 billion. The planet can support another 2 billion, but at the expense of the wildlife. And that's one of the fundamental choices mankind has to make. Do we value our wild places? And one of the solutions to that is we need to curb population growth, and we need to curb the consumption of meat and dairy, and we need to curb our consumption of shit that is mined from all of these exotic places around the world. But that needs backbone from government, and it needs people like you and me and others to start caring about these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, it's super urgent. I mean, this is the moment really where we need to make those changes. And so I thank you very, very much, Captain Pete, for all of your work. Thank you for your perspective. I really hope to make it down there soon. I know I've planned on visiting Margarita, and I would really love to just see what's going on. What is something that people can do to support you and your work?
There's a couple of things people can do to support us. One is they can go to the website, earthrace.net. They can donate. The second thing they can do is they can volunteer for us. So people who have skills, things like videographers, photographers, engineers, admin, social media, we need all those people. So they can go to our website, look at the volunteers page, look at the Costa Rica page, see what we're doing, and if you think you might be able to come and help, send me an email or connect with me on social media.
Amazing, amazing. And in order to join, if suddenly I have a change of heart and I wanted to dedicate a year of my life to these tactical operations, what would I need to do? Is that even possible?
You would have a call with Margarita first to make sure she's okay with it.
Hypothetically, I'm not actually going to do this.
Oh, look, we take all sorts of people on the ship. At the moment, I've got two basically kids, 19 years old, who come with very little in the way of skills, but who pick them up on the ship. And then I've got, a 50-year-old engineer who's extremely talented and qualified and amazing at fixing stuff and everything in between. So I would suggest if people think they want to get involved, message me and we'll see if we can work something out.
Amazing.
Even you, Jonah.
Yeah, I think I value your work so much, and thank you to you and your entire group. Would it be possible to just see the facility one more time and see the people who are behind you?
Sure, I'll introduce you to Upper, our anti-poaching dog. He's sitting up here. Hello, Upper.
Hey. Oh, what a cutie.
He's an amazing dog to say.
Nice.
Here's a bowl of water. Take you inside. This is where my boys are hopefully probably just about finished cleaning the guns in here. So they've got these Ruger Mini 14s, which are a 223.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're just busy servicing all these for the guys. How's the servicing going? Yeah. Was that down the bore, was it? Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, just we'll clean them then, eh? Are they all finished? There you go.
Wow.
There you go.
Thank you for your service. I don't know if they can hear me, but just send my gratitude and from the rest, on behalf of the planet and future generations, thank you so much for everything you do, Pete. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
China, good talking to you. You're welcome down here anytime, mate. If you get your butt down to Costa Rica, come and hang out on the boat for a day or two, and we'll probably put you in the kitchen making burgers for us or something like that.
Nothing would make me happy.
Thanks for what you guys do too. I mentioned before about people need to rethink their food, and we sure need to eat less meat and less dairy on this planet. And you guys have got a role to play in that. So much respect to you.
Thank you so much.
All right, Jonah, travel safe, brother.
Yeah, have a great day. Stay safe.
All right. See you, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.